but I know for a fact a lot of you are in school and you are faced with the option, should I bring cold lunch or should I eat hot lunch at school?
Quick question, what was the best thing that your school lunch ever served? Seriously, write your
The dry chicken sandwich.
answer down in the comments below. Because at my school, when I was growing up, the cream of the crop was known as cheesy dippers. They were literally just breadsticks with a bunch of cheese melted on them and meat sauce to dip them in. Any other schools out there have those or something similar to that? Because kids went crazy for these.
This is basically like the high-class Bosco stick. If you've never had a Bosco stick in your entire life, if they're burnt, they're horrible. They're horrible.
These things. They showed up on the menu like every other Wednesday, and the line was out the door for them. And it always confused me because, you know, they're just breadsticks and sauce. But little did Tot Pat realize at the time that those cheesy dippers, as well as all the other hot dogs, pizzas, and mystery meats that lunch lady Brenda was slopping down onto my plate, were part of a grand conspiracy. A cascade of lies and backtalk. So eat up while you can, my friends.
Okay, early prediction here. I think he's going to say that the food that they gave you was handcrafted over time in order to mind control us, or some weird crazy fact or something, man.
For today's episode, you'll never look at lunchtime the same way again.
Oh God, was I right? But yeah, this is really interesting. I hated school food with a passion.
Internet, welcome to Food Theory. Class is now in session. That's right, friendos, it's back to school season, and with it comes the return of lunchtime, the time when cliques are formed that can make or break your school reputation.
Literally, back in middle school, the pizza was so bad. The pizza was so bad. The French bread pizza that they had, I called it the tuna boat because it literally smelled like fish. I don't know how you could possibly make a pizza that smelled like fish, but this one did. And it was in the shape of a boat, so I called it the tuna boat.
Or, you know, you could always be like me and reject the entire social hierarchy, instead forcing yourself to sit at each individual lunch table one at a time as part of a grand social experiment to see which social cliques respond most angrily to an outsider encroaching on their territory. True story, that was my 8th grade science fair.
You burned your tongue with mac and cheese? Oh God.
Sporty girls wound up being the worst. They threw food at me and they physically tried to lift me out of my seat for the entire hour in an attempt to get me to move. But science moves for no one. I locked my legs under the bench and held on for dear life. And you know what? It was worth it. Them throwing food resulted in me getting some free fries that day. And eventually, I got myself a blue ribbon at the Ohio State Science Fair. So get dunked on there, Mallory, Courtney, Bethany, Catherine with a K, and other Bethany. Today, though, we're not here to talk about the social politics of the lunchroom. We're talking about the food politics of the lunchroom. You see, school lunches have been in the news a lot over the last few years. The USDA recently increased funding for school.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. This is really strange, but I feel like the best thing that the school has ever put in front of me was not only the chicken sandwich, the dry chicken sandwich, or the cookies. It was their barbecue chicken. Their barbecue chicken. It was the sauce. The sauce was like the cherry on top. That's what really made the meal good. Without the sauce, you know, it would be like toxic chicken being thrown my way. But
meals, some states like Maine and California are now permanently offering free school lunches for everyone, and of course the ever-present topic of whether school lunches are healthy enough for kids. Might seem like an odd topic to be a hotbed of controversy, but school lunches and their nutrition are actually one of those issues that have a direct influence on how the next generation grows up. And while I think everyone would agree that healthier is better, the history of school lunches shows just how many competing interests exist in the competition over what little Jimmy is cramming into his pie hole come noon 30, sometime between phys ed and algebra. Case in point, this. A tomato. It's a fruit, right? I think that's pretty well established by now, but for decades when I was growing up, people were confused about that.
Tomatoes are fruit?
Thinking that it was a vegetable. And their confusion was entirely justified because, you know what? It was. So was ketchup. So was pizza. Vegetable, vegetable, vegetable. So how was pizza possibly considered a vegetable? Well, it all began here. In the school cafeteria. So line up and hold out your tray. I'm about to serve up some tasty history so you can start to understand the conspiracy behind the slop that students get served. You see,
did he just call pizza a vegetable?
only did the parents like it, the government did too, because it solved another problem that they had, namely that the US had itself a surplus of domestic produce and didn't exactly know what to do with it all. I've actually talked about this in a previous theory about America's secret supply of underground cheese, which, if you haven't watched, make sure you check out that episode after this one. But basically, school lunches were one place that they could offload a bunch of that extra cheddar. Feed kids while also using up your surplus cheese. Two birds with one Swiss. And cheese was hardly the only example of this. I mean, I don't want to say that the school lunch program was just a convenient dumping ground for all the extra unsold food that nobody wanted to actually buy. I don't want to say it, but you know, a lot of times
that actually sounds legit, though.
It kind of ended up being true. For instance, when the USDA, the US Department of Agriculture, was faced with that dairy
he
surplus,
has
they
a
initially bought the
point.
cheese, right, and put it into the caves, and eventually it became part of my cheesy dippers.
He has a point, though.
Fine. But then they had a realization. Hey, those cows that keep producing so much milk that we can't figure out what to do with? Oh yeah, they're also beef. Suspicious look over at the cows, and thus the whole herd buyout program of the 1980s was born. School lunches suddenly took the form of burgers and pizza and anything that could make use of beef and or cheese. So where then does the school lunch conspiracy come in? Nutrition. You see, even though surplus was certainly one driving factor dictating what was and wasn't getting served as a part of school lunches, the other was nutrition. School lunches had to at least be nutritious. And because meal regulations still stated that kids had to be served 2 full servings of vegetables with their school lunch, everything was just hunky-dory, right? Right? Well, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that those who set the definitions around food don't always do so in an impartial way. I mean, our vision of a healthy diet used to look like this. For a long time, the guiding principle was eat more carbs. Come to think of it, the food pyramid was created by the USDA, the same USDA that was responsible for the school lunch program in the first place. So the same organization that comes up with the lunches also gets to come up with the nutrition rubric that those lunches need to be graded on. Surely no potential for bias or conflict of interest there, right? Well, in 1979, USDA guidelines were loosened to the point that nutrition standards for school lunch items only had to meet the minimum requirements rather than the stricter requirements of being quote-unquote officially healthy. So how minimum is a minimum standard? Well, one USDA official is said to have explained it as follows, quote, "If a candy bar has only one nut in it, we feel it is above our minimum nutrient standards."
What?
In other words, things ain't looking too great. But at the very least, they still had that 2 vegetable rule, right? That ensured that even though a peanutty baby Ruth might have gotten served up as a side next to your mac and cheese, you at least have some green beans and carrots on the plate to balance it all out. Well, let's pull up what I said a few seconds ago. Quote, "Kids have to be served 2 full servings of vegetables with their school lunch." Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to play a game. You see, that's what the regulations said, except it presents a problem. Produce, it's expensive. It's expensive to store at the correct temperatures. It doesn't keep for very long periods of time. It takes varying times to prepare, and it needs to be shipped under proper conditions, usually within specific seasons. Remember, we're talking about technology from the late 70s and early 80s to get all this done. As if that wasn't bad enough, surveys of school lunch waste repeatedly show that vegetables are the item that kids leave unused and throw out the most often. So in essence, what you're dealing with
because it's always
is the food item
worse.
that's
It's because it's always worse from school. Not in like, oh, you know, it's from school, so that means I shouldn't eat it. I'm talking like the quality of like the vegetables. Like they're always trash for some reason. It's always like it feels unhealthy eating something healthy from school. I don't know why.
generating the highest cost and also has itself the lowest return. It's only there because parents expect healthy vegetables to be offered to their kids by the school. It has to be on the menu. The regulations say it. Then again, words can be open to some creative interpretation. In an attempt to meet the letter of the law in technicality, but not necessarily in spirit, the USDA tried to list the ingredients of condiments to help boost up the number of vegetables that were being served to the kiddos in school. Ketchup? Well, if you read the label, it says tomato right there. That's a vegetable, right? Count it. Pizza? Well, that's not just any sauce, my friend. That is tomato sauce. Count it. Packets of relish. That right there, friends, is a serving of cucumber. And that is the story of how ketchup almost became a vegetable. Almost. If it seems to you like this school lunch program strategy was a wee bit on the cheaty side, you're not alone. Kids have to be served 2 full servings of vegetables with their school lunch. If you can't change a condiment into a vegetable, why not try swapping the labels on something else? And that's when they found their new loophole. This word right here, serve. The USDA adopted new guidelines, still largely in use today, based around the offer versus serve model, which is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of being required to serve a certain helping of vegetables, what if school lunch programs were only required to offer a certain helping of vegetables?
Oh.
And since kids were making the choice, they could be safely relied on to decline said offer. The defense of that position is that serving vegetables to kids doesn't do much good if the kids are just going to chuck those vegetables right into the trash. Under guidelines first proposed in 2010 aimed at curbing childhood obesity, frozen pizzas of the type typically served by the slice in school lunches
Okay, are you hearing this? Pizza is considered a vegetable.
could retain their serving of vegetables title if the sauce quotient was bumped up to half a cup of sauce as opposed to just 2 tablespoons. Except yet again, people had problems with that. ConAgra, which supplies an estimated 75% of frozen pizza to US schools, argued that over-saucing their product would make the kids not want to eat it. And then they spent $6 million
Yeah,
lobbying the
dude,
government to convince lawmakers.
the sauces that they use for school food, it's nasty. It's gross. Have you ever had a dry pizza before with like no sauce? Or over-sauced dry pizza? I don't know how you can have a saucy pizza but still have it dry, but school finds a way.
But hey, that's just a theory.
I was about to...
Bon appetit. Or
I was about to say a game theory. Jesus, dude. But yeah, I mean, I guess pizza, the more you know, you can bring up the argument it's a vegetable.